Thanks. As I was saying, I said contrary to popularly held but erroneous belief, the president has not declared a state of emergency.
Okay.
And he, acting alone as the head of the executive branch of government at the federal level, cannot declare a state of emergency. And this is not a matter of semantics. The president, acting properly under section 305 of the Constitution that the president invoked in his broadcast, can only issue by an instrument proclamation of a state of emergency.
Okay.
If you look at the provision of section 305, the marginal notes, which reads procedure for declaration of a state of emergency. The declaration of a state of emergency is a process of stages or steps.
Okay.
And it includes, first, the proclamation of a state of emergency by an instrument and the publication thereof in an official gazette of the federal government. That's stage one.
Okay.
The transmission of that gazette to the two houses of the National Assembly for their consideration and possible approval by a 2/3 majority vote. That's stage two.
Okay.
The actual consideration and vote. That's stage three. And then thereafter, the approval, and then you have a declaration of a state of emergency. So
okay.
It's a procedure, it's a process. What the president has just done, in this case, was to announce, broadcast, or pronounce a state of emergency on television. And we are being told that, and I'm not aware that this has been done, that there has not been a publication in an official gazette.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, one of the earliest supporters of this quote-unquote declaration of a state of emergency, the Senate Majority Leader, Ndoma Egbasan, has said that, the Constitution has not stipulated the time frame for the president to transmit any official gazette. And nobody is aware, not even the National Assembly as of today, except it happened yesterday. The last time they sat, they have not confirmed that they received an official gazette. Now, the president is not under an obligation to advertise, grandstand, or initiate a state of emergency on television.
Okay.
He has no such obligation except for the purpose of public enlightenment and education. Now, all the Constitution requires the president to do is to issue by an instrument a proclamation. And when we're talking about constitutional matter, we're not just talking about literal or ordinary dictionary interpretation. It's a procedure. It has to be followed to the letter before you can have a state of emergency. And the reason why it is so in constitutional law is that under a presidential system of government, you have three branches of government. When you're going to take extraordinary measures that implicate possibly suspending or breaching the provisions of the Constitution, including the special provisions entrenched in the Constitution, fundamental rights, conducting searching, barging into houses, locking down places, holding people in detention, military detention, as if you have a martial law. You have to secure the concurrence of the legislature. Otherwise, you'll have a dictatorship. What we've seen following that pronouncement is that the media is awash with reports that even the military has started discussing a curfew. I say, when the National Assembly has not sat, we may be eager, we may be stressed up, we may be under severe pressure to get quick solution. And indeed, everybody is. But the due process of law must be followed to the letter. Even if it is on a Sunday, as we had when the oil subsidy crisis was being debated in the National Assembly on a Sunday. Even if it's on a Sunday, as we had when the president signed the so-called suspension of Justice Salami. Even if it is on a Sunday, the president will have worked post haste, transmit those documents and say, please quickly, we have this situation here, concur, vote on it, and let's move. But what we've seen is that that has not happened. Troops are being massed up, and we've been told that the state of emergency has started. Even the international media, Al Jazeera, CNN, they show footage saying that yes, the state of emergency has started. That is not the rule of law.
So based on what you have said now, the process has just been kicked off.
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, it hasn't even started yet.
The president has just
announced to the world
that
he has not sent anything.
The president used the term, I hereby declare a state of emergency. He cannot do that, except permissively we just say that, okay, the president is just using the word literally. But if we go by the provision of the Constitution, the only obligation the president has, constitutional obligation, is to say that if you have such a crisis and extraordinary measures are required, the president will, by an instrument,
to the National Assembly,
a proclamation. And what's an instrument? There will be a document the president will execute. That broadcast could go into that instrument under the seal of the president, transmitted, it's made a gazette, and then transmitted to the National Assembly. That's what the Constitution says.
So when it's transmitted to the National Assembly, there's still that need for an endorsement.
Exactly. If the National Assembly does not vote by a two-thirds majority approving it, that is the
dead in the water.
The proclamation of a state of emergency. So it is not given. And that was why, if we go by the history of it, when the NCNC and NPC government in the First Republic, in a holy alliance, was going to destroy the action group in Western Nigeria by declaring that state of emergency, on the floor of the parliament, the prime minister, because then we had a cabinet system of government, go and read the Hansard, had to go on floor of the parliament to persuade, please declare, and Chief Obafemi Awolowo of Blessed Memory on the other side was saying, no, go to Ibadan, everywhere is free. It was only in the chambers of the House of Assembly, of the legislature in Ibadan, that you had this fracas, because the supporter of Chief S.L. Akintola and all, trying to say that, don't declare a state of emergency in my region. So, it is not just a constitutional matter, it is also a political matter. And this is my fear, what I've seen is that I'm not sure sufficient discussion are taking place between the executive branch of government and the legislature before this pronouncement. This pronouncement. So we can see some deterrent on the part of the executive to quickly transmit. And so even when they had their last sitting on Thursday, in the House of Representatives it was not raised. In the Senate, the president of the Senate said, we'll discuss something very important on Tuesday. So it is the duty of the executive arm of government now to then work with the legislature and say that we have this dire situation here, and the state of emergency is warranted. Here is the proclamation.
Okay, Mr. Korua, let us suppose that there is a state of emergency, even though we have been told that according to the law of the land, there isn't. Do you see it solving the problem that we have up in those 3 states?
The truth is, we have a situation in our hands. And what has been happening up north, for me personally, is not something we just have to gloss over. It's escalated from one level to another. And if I was the president, I probably would do something drastic, but not because I won't respect the law or the constitution of the country. So, and for that kind of uprising, especially from the way the president described it in his speech, because most of us here, we just kept hearing that Boko Haram, were bombing places. We didn't know that they had taken over the states. They had produced flags and all kinds of things, taking over some local government areas. It was strange that it has gotten to that stage. So one would think that a government that cares about its people would want to do something drastic. it's not about whether it was right or wrong or whether we have followed Constitution now. For me, I hear what my friend is saying here. Yes, we need to follow Constitution, but at what point do you do something drastic because people are dying? The death toll is increasing by the day, so something needed to be done. So probably if they can go backwards, if indeed they didn't follow the Constitution and they have to walk backwards, then let them do it. But something needs to be done at this point.
Do you see that thing helping to solve the problem? Because some people have said, because we discussed this as we were opening the program, that some people have said, hooray, at last, something drastic is being done. Too many lives have been lost. Yet, on the other side of the divide, some have said, force for force, violence, it will only escalate and translate into more violence and more death.
To tell you the truth, this can only probably halt it for a while. One thing about the kind of activities or insurgents, like we call it, that we started seeing in the north, it's not something that just started, it doesn't start in a day. It's a build-up of probably years and years of maybe economic deprivation, religious understanding, all kinds of things would have happened along the line, and then someday it erupts. So and what it happens, if we would call it terrorism or whatever, is people feel aggrieved and they feel we need to do something for people, for the world to hear us, for the government to hear our voice. And then they start an activity, sometimes criminal activities, all kinds of issues like we're seeing. So if you say, hey, I'm going to kill you guys, it doesn't stop it. It probably would maybe just halt it for a while. Mm. But there's a lot of undercurrents already that we have to go down and try to address.
Now, Mr. Kwajimo, yep, do you see emergency rules solving the problem of Boko Haram?
Let us see and check the starting point of this menace. It dated back to July 2009. The real name of Boko Haram was Jama'atu Ahli Sunnat Wal Dawat Wal Jihad. And when they started, a lot of lives, countless right now. You cannot count the number. In fact, I don't even know now. It has reached a crescendo where drastic action have to be taken. Quite a number of us have criticized the government for laxity, for being too soft. Especially many people even told Mr. President, you are too soft. How will some elements believed to be criminals be killing your citizenry and will be watching? And even the foreigners, quite a number of people, quite a number of us have criticized Mr. President and the government for this. Now, having reached this level, drastic situation require drastic solution. And in a situation where human lives, countless number of human lives, properties have been wasted endlessly, you can't be seated there as Mr. President and be watching. You are not just Mr. President, you are Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. How do you go about it? My good friend G.T. Ogunye have given us the constitutional procedure. Mr. President himself has constituted Amnesty Committee under the Minister of State, Special Duties, Kabiru Turaki. And as they are going on, even the Boko Haram people are saying they are not interested in the amnesty. Many of the emir, the sultan are even begging the Boko Haram people to accept amnesty. And in a situation where you have given alternatives, and the set of people are saying no, and they keep on killing. Thursday, 2-3 days ago, they waylaid a commercial bank, 4 commercial banks, and they destroyed many people. They killed soldiers.
Would we still describe those people as Boko Haram or armed robbers?
You call them armed robbers. For your information, I'm a Muslim. I've never seen elements in the Quran that says you as a Christian should go and kill you if you don't accept my religion. I've not seen it. In other words, we are in a situation that requires drastic solution. Now, if you are now talking about is it going to work, to a certain extent, to me, if that declaration was not done, the country is becoming a failed state. And to a much greater extent, I've said it earlier, I have been one of the critics of Mr. President. But for this one he has done, to me, I commend his effort. I always condemn the condemnables, and I commend the commendables. For what he has done, you only now need to follow to gazette the whole procedure and to do what my gentle GT Ogunye, the way I can see him, he himself is not saying that he's supporting killings of innocent people. I believe him, I know him, we know one another for several years, right from our university days. I know he's not a violent person, and I can't believe in it, but he has given us the constitutional procedure, which we can now advise Mr. President, the executive arm of government, to follow that procedure. Okay, but to me, to much greater extent, that state of emergency is very urgent, and for the first time in my life, I am commending Mr. President to have done that at this point in time. You only need to back it up with the provisional constitutional ratification.
Thank you. Let's ask GT Ogunye. Now, you said that the first step is the proclamation. The next step will be, it's got to become one that goes into the House where there is an endorsement of some sort. 2/3 was the word I heard you use. Yes. Now, is the constitutional provision. So it's not just your word, it's the letters of the law.
Section 305.
Okay. Now, I was just looking at Section 305. I'm going through it as we were talking here. And I'm thinking, okay, if that is the case, definitely the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria must know what the Constitution says. And even if he does not know, the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice would have counseled and advised. But one of the things that did leak to the media at some point, I don't know whether I should call this a leakage or was an intentional statement, was that the Senate had endorsed it, but I did not see anywhere that it says it was done officially, but they said he had the backing of the Senate. What does this mean? Does it still mean this is not legal yet? It is not illegal because it's a proclamation. It is allowed by the Constitution, but it is not fully legal as an implementable action of government.
What I'm saying is that we're not aware that a proclamation via an instrument published in an official gazette of the government of the Federation has been made and then transmitted to the National Assembly for that consideration and vote to take place. That is the simple procedure. If there is a report that the Senate has backed the pronouncement of the President, then the question I will ask is that how did he back it?
Where did they vote?
Where did they take the vote? You know, because it's possible for, in politics, for the President or members of the executive branch of government to liaise with the leadership of both houses and say, please, we're sending you out. This is what we want to do. So what's going to happen? Help us gauge the mood of your members, whether this has a chance of passing. Not just by an ordinary majority, simple majority, but two-thirds majority. That discussion could have taken place. Indeed, I expected that the discussion would have taken place. Otherwise, that would just be irresponsible of government, because you need to take them along, members of the National Assembly. Now, that could have taken place, but this will not amount to a vote on it and an endorsement. And what I've said
which
is that
all have to be official.
Official. So it's not a closer thing. It's open. It's a procedure. It's a process.
Yeah.
And that's why the Constitution talks about due process of law. Now, I'm not yet talking about whether a declaration of a state of emergency is warranted in the circumstances. If I were to talk about it, I would then say unhesitatingly that, of course, look, the entire country is in a state of undeclared emergency. The entire country, not just the Northeast.
Including our new Lagos.
And I'm telling you this, look at the provision of the Constitution and justify and look at it. Everywhere you turn in this country, it's just that people are fixated on the territory, indivisibility of Nigeria, territorial integrity. What has territorial integrity got to do with my life? What has it got to do with the 65 security agents that were killed in Nasarawa State? What has it got to do with the policemen that were killed and dumped in the ocean in Bayelsa State? What did it get to do with a lieutenant colonel, one Lieutenant Colonel Zaki, supposedly a Eastern, that was killed in Bayelsa waters and dumped into the sea? Well, so what has it got to do with those who are dying every day? There is a state of emergency in